What's up, Taiwan? Good evening. I'm Erika Liu with 10 minutes of news from here in Taiwan and around the world. New Omicron variants of the COVID-19 virus have been detected in Taiwan. That's the latest from the country's Pandemic Response Task Force. Early research shows that these BA4 and BA5 variants are more contagious than other Omicron strains. 5 cases of these new strains have been confirmed in Taiwan so far, all imported. These new variants were first found in South Africa in early May and already account for 10% of current global infections. Taiwan reported just over 45,000 new COVID cases on Monday. Health Minister Chen Shizhong has tested positive for the virus. He's isolating at home, and the Deputy Chief of Taiwan's Pandemic Response Team is taking over his duties for now. But as Louise Watt reports, despite the high number of daily new cases, the government is making further plans to ease restrictions.
The man known as the face of Taiwan's pandemic response has now become the headline in the country's COVID news coverage. Chen Shizhong was diagnosed with COVID less than 24 hours after he said the country's most severe outbreak since the pandemic began is abating.
那疫情看起来是很稳定哈。 Chen's
team says his symptoms include aches and pains and a cough, and he's isolating at home.
陈时中指挥官，因为上午自觉有相关的症状，所以他自己使用家用快筛试剂检验，那结果是阳性。
Chen was at a cabinet meeting the day before his diagnosis. The presidential office says the premier and others who were there are all feeling fine, and the building is being disinfected.
祝福陈时中指挥官早日康复。部长这2年多来辛苦防疫，头发都白了许多，真的非常辛苦。希望指挥官早日回归岗位。
Taiwan's current outbreak is driven by the Omicron variant, with daily cases in the tens of thousands. But despite this, the government is pushing ahead with opening up the country. From Wednesday, mandatory quarantine for all arriving passengers will be reduced from 7 days to 3. And many here hope further restrictions will be eased as the country heads into summer vacations and the prime tourist season. Chris Ma and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan may appeal to the World Trade Organization after China moved to ban imports of Taiwanese fish. Jean Van Trieste has the details.
The latest sticking point in cross-strait relations is a type of fish. Beijing added Taiwanese grouper to its import blacklist on Monday, claiming to have found banned chemicals and excess antibiotics in samples. Taiwan says it may take its case to the World Trade Organization. President Tsai Ing-wen condemned the ban in a Facebook post. She says Beijing never responded to evidence Taiwan gave last year showing its grouper meet international standards. She also said the ban violates international trade rules, a point highlighted by the agriculture minister.
从来没有一个国家直接针对未检出或者是这样的一个超标就直接全部暂停输入，顶多就是销毁跟退运，所以基本上。 我们认为中国是完全没有依照国际规范在执行。
For now, the government's focus is on helping local fish farmers. Last year, grouper exports were worth $57 million, with 90% going to China. Farmers expect to see big losses.
如果1年的话，差不多会在2亿左右的营收的影响。
On Sunday, Premier Su Zhengchang visited fish farms in the southern county of Pingdong, where half of Taiwan's grouper are raised. He said China's ban is political and that Taiwan will work to find other markets for the fish.
过去放在同一个篮子的过度依赖中国，我们就是会遭受它的这种政治勒索敲诈。
The government says it will act to stabilize the domestic market and give incentives to businesses that process and export the fish. Last year, China suspended imports of 3 fruits from Taiwan, citing concerns about pests. And there are concerns that the list of banned exports will keep growing as long as the tensions between the two sides continue to rise. Patrick Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Ukraine's president says the world should help countries threatened by more powerful nations. His comment was in response to a question about China's aggression toward Taiwan. Volodymyr Zelensky was remotely addressing the Shangri-La Dialogue, Asia's leading security conference. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is now entering its 5th month. A Washington Post reporter asked the president how Taiwan could stand strong as, quote, China seeks to impose its control over free people by force if necessary. Zelensky responded via an interpreter.
And therefore, we need a diplomatic resolution to support countries that are in need of help. We must not leave them behind at the mercy of another country which is more powerful in financial terms, in territorial terms, and in terms of equipment. And therefore, if there is a way out diplomatically, we need to use the diplomatic way.
Taiwan took center stage at the Shangri-La Dialogue, which ended on Sunday. Both China and the U.S. were vocal about their positions on Taiwan. China's defense minister spoke about his country taking Taiwan by force.
第一，祖国统一是绝对要实现的。统一是民族大业，是历史大事，任何人、任何势力都无法阻挡。
His comments come despite the fact the ruling Chinese Communist Party has never governed Taiwan. It's increasingly becoming a point of contention with the U.S., which is Taiwan's biggest unofficial backer. To find out more about the Shangri-La Dialogue and what it could mean for Taiwan, our reporter Rick Lauert spoke to Professor Michael Hunzucker of George Mason University about those statements.
What signals do you think there were of how the Taiwan issue between the US and China might play out?
I think two things come to mind. The first, and it's not surprising, we were already aware of it in open source reporting. It's been, reported in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal here in the United States. But the fact that China's Minister of National Defense was transparent about the fact that China is pursuing an increased or an expanded nuclear arsenal, I think that pairs together official rhetoric with something that we knew was happening anyway, which sends a very powerful signal to the United States and something I think we should take seriously, that the Taiwan issue is so central to the Chinese regime that we can't rule out the risks of nuclear escalation in a crisis over Taiwan. So I think that's one important takeaway where the rhetoric, I think, points us in a direction that many of us saw coming, but that we need to take seriously. The second issue I think that comes out that just gives us some hint of the challenge we may face is the degree to which the Chinese, and we've heard this before, but again, we're emphasizing this sense that the United States is largely behind in supporting independence movements in Taiwan. I, for one, see nothing in Taiwan, and certainly not in this administration, in the Tsai administration, to suggest that that's the truth.
A replica of Hong Kong's Pillar of Shame commemorating the June 4th Tiananmen Square crackdown was vandalized in Taipei on Sunday. Black paint was sprayed on the replica, which was erected in front of the Chiang Kai-shek Memorial Hall on the 33rd anniversary of the incident. A 19-year-old suspect was arrested 6 hours later. Danish sculptor Jens Galschiot, who created the original work, has decided that the black paint will not be removed. It will symbolize China's aggression toward the arts and the democracy movement. In 1989, up to 1 million protesters took to the streets in Beijing to demand greater political freedom. The peaceful demonstrations ended with the Chinese government's brutal crackdown, which killed hundreds of protesters. The suspect says he defaced the statue out of financial frustration brought on by the pandemic. But the date of the attack may be deliberate. June 12th is a day of remembrance for the 2019 democratic protests in Hong Kong. The organizer of Taiwan's Tiananmen Square Memorial event believes there's more behind the act. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Remember to download the TaiwanPlus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally today, we leave you with images of Croatia's Adriatic beautiful coast. I'm Erika Liu. Take care and see you next time.